You're listening to the Trading Bear Podcast, episode 65. Welcome back, thanks for joining in. Before we get into the news, just a few apologies for the lack of shows in recent weeks. This has been due to various reasons, including moving house, finishing up at work. I'm a maths teacher by trade, so the summer break is now here and more time to focus on the show. So onwards with the show, let's get straight in. The transfer market has really heated up in the last couple of days, and the vast majority of all the news centres around two clubs, namely Manchester United and Real Madrid. The dealings of the likes of Paul Pogba, Gareth Bale, more on him later, Bruno Fernandes, and Lazio midfielder Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, all being intertwined with the prices of all four rising up and down like the English weather, as journalists, in inverted commas, try to make up their minds if each is coming or going. Elsewhere, Manchester City were linked with a bid for Real Sociedad's Spanish under-21 international, Mikel Oyarzabal, with some reports stating they are willing to meet his €75 million release clause. On the back of this, Oyarzabal, another former prospect player on the show, rose 21p to take him to a current price of £1.52. Stocky don't have the makings of a very interesting team this season, with Oyarzabal playing alongside the two Scandinavian youngsters of Martin Odegaard and 19-year-old Swedish striker Alexander Isak. In particular, Odegaard in pre-season has looked very good, controlling the games and taking the vast majority of set pieces. They're very much a team to keep an eye on. And lastly in the news, the next big FI news is just around the corner. There will be a large announcement this Tuesday. That's Tuesday the 30th of July at 7pm. Now I use the phrase large announcement due to a market suspension being put in place. For those that don't know, this means that the whole market, both buying and selling, will be frozen at 7pm for 30 minutes. The announcement will be made via Twitter, email and FI's own website at 7:01, and then traders will then have half an hour to digest the changes before the market reopens at 7:30pm. Upon which time the market goes into a feeding frenzy. More on this though and what the announcement may entail in tomorrow's show. On to the day's notable risers and fallers now then. With the transfer season now in full flow as we approach the deadlines for each nation, facts can be hard to find at times. However, one fact that is guaranteed is that Zinedine Zidane does not does not want Gareth Bale. After much speculation, it finally looked like Zidane had got what he wanted, with Bale set to sign an astronomical $1 million a week deal with Chinese club Jiangsu Suning. His price plummeted on the news right down to £1.62, only for the news this morning that Madrid had called the move off, reportedly due to Perez, the Real Madrid president, who unlike Zidane actually rates Bale, and as Perez himself demanding a transfer fee, something that the Chinese club were unwilling to pay. Now Bale not going to China, seemingly staying at Madrid, what happens next? We'll get out those rocket symbols. Almost instantly he rose 64p to take him to his current price of £2.27, representing a 40% plus rise in the space of 30 minutes. However, there's still a few days to go until the Chinese transfer window shuts on the 31st of July, and until that window shuts, I'd still be extremely wary of another twist in the tail. The fall in Bale's price over the weekend before today's rise was one of the biggest on Football Index in a long while, certainly since the allegations first came out against Ronaldo in the autumn of 2018. Although the risk should have been obvious from the get-go with a potential move to China for Bale, it still serves as a timely reminder that you should never hold more than 10 to 15% max of a player in your total portfolio, unless your strategy is extreme risk-reward and you are able to monitor news 24/7. Thankfully, extreme falls are still far and few between, and most falls are relatively minor in comparison. Two of the biggest fallers today were Ryan Brewster, the hyped Liverpool youngster, who fell 18p to take him to a current price of £3.47. Now he saw plenty of action early on during the first stages of pre-season, but as the season grows nearer, expect him to feature more and more off the pitch and on the bench rather than on the pitch itself. If you bought 2 to 3 months ago, now seems a good time to get off, or if you were waiting to buy, hold off for a few weeks until he completely cools and then buy in during the flat periods. The other faller today was a hero to many last season, former Nîmes hogger of everything, Teji Savanier. The 27-year-old, now at Montpellier, unfortunately sustained an injury during their pre-season match against Huddersfield at the weekend. The Montpellier coach after the match adding, he's going to have an exam on Monday morning, but according to what the doctor and the physiotherapist said, it's not good news. So we await the scans then for confirmation on Monday, but those quotes alone meant a fall in price of 12p to take Savanier to £1.09. We go into this episode's prospect player now, a player who I feel could do well in the near future and attract buys. For this episode, we look ahead to Tuesday's announcement and on the factual knowledge that changes in the PB matrix scoring system will definitely be taking place. As to those exact changes, well, we can only speculate at current, but taking a logical approach and the questions that have been asked in the recent surveys, key passes and dribbles may well get a boost. Now, tomorrow's show will have a focus on which players may benefit the most, but for now, one of those players that's set to benefit is former Hoffenheim playmaker Kamer Demirbay. The 26-year-old, 6-foot German international scored 4 and set up 9 last year during 26 appearances, and is now set to play in the Champions League after making the €28 million move to Bayer Leverkusen. Feeding the likes of Volland, Bellarabi, Alario and Diaby, opportunities for key passers should be aplenty, not to mention playing alongside one of the best young players in the world, and that's based on talent, not hype, in Kai Havertz. Now, Demirbay has already had a bit of buying action. He's gone up between 6 to 10p in the last few days, alongside fellow playmaker Alejandro Gomez at Atalanta, who's gone up slightly less, between 4 to 5p. But keep an eye out on both of those players when what happens with the PB changes on Tuesday, and both could be ones to have in your portfolio if you don't already own. Let's have a look at some of your questions now then. This episode's first question comes via email, with David Williams asking, has the market started to outgrow PB dividends? Well, David, this is a very good and topical question, and one that's been asked by numerous traders since the end of last season, really. To answer your question directly, yes, I think it has, and PB dividends need a boost to remind everyone that the platform's USP, or unique selling point, is that traders' knowledge of players should be rewarded, and picking out a relatively unknown player based on underlying stats should be rewarded through that player's performance on the pitch, and not, no matter how good the rewards are, just purely on speculative CA or capital appreciation. The pendulum needs to swing slightly back towards rewarding PB dividends and away from CA, in my opinion, in order for the whispers of Ponzi schemes and the likes being used by those perhaps looking to invest in FI but not convinced how the value is actually created. The key to this then is obviously the announcement on Tuesday and whether if the PB dividends are increased, and if so, by how much. Some are speculating we could see relatively high increases in the PB dividend payouts. I'm not yet convinced this will happen, and instead think we may see a minor change, for example a 1p increase in star player each week, and then another increase later on in the season around the start of the new calendar year in 2020. But I would certainly like to see a notable change in PB dividends this week, and get back to PB providing the value, that's for sure. Question 2 arrives via Twitter, with FI Buffs wanting to know the following. With the new season approaching, when would be the optimum time to start purchasing players for IBDs again? Well, at the risk of repeating myself and sitting on a wall higher than the one to be built between Mexico and the US, is a wait and see approach until after Tuesday's announcement, and what lies ahead for IBDs. We do, however, know 2 things already about in-play dividends. 1, we know that the board at FA are very keen on them, and that they generate serious income through the higher increase of turnover trading / higher volumes of trading. Secondly, they are set to be made permanent almost certainly, and at the very least under the current system of 30-day holds. And this may be possibly be further increased to 45 or even 60-day holds, although this was merely met by a nice idea response from Adam Cole during the latest Twitter Q&A he held a few weeks back. So with the news on IBD likely to be extremely positive once more, I would be purchasing IBDs from now onwards really. In the case of the French and English leagues, you're already getting 3 to 4 games worth now, but expect extremely volatile prices, especially in the first few weeks, with goals sending prices rocketing and blanks vice versa, of course, as already seen with the youngsters in pre-season games. One thing to note though is the early single game days for the likes of Liverpool, Bayern Munich and Lyon. And lastly, if you didn't see, the Liga have changed the Friday and Monday night games, or rather they have cancelled the Friday and Monday night games. These have been moved back to Saturday and Sunday, the weekends only, so just be mindful of that, Barcelona being one of the teams affected there. And that's it for this episode. You can download and subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify and Podbean. Head over to the website to send in a question, tradingbearpodcast.com. Alternatively, you can find me on IndexGain or Twitter under the name Trading Bear. Thanks for listening and stay tuned for the Mystery Player.